U.S. President Donald Trump distanced himself from former lawyer Michael Cohen in a series of tweets. He said that he never directed Cohen to break the law, adding that Cohen agreed to the charges only to embarrass the president. In another tweet, he said that Cohen was guilty of many charges that were not related to him. He also went on to tweet that he had done nothing wrong with respect to campaign finance laws, as it was not campaign finance. Cohen was sentenced to 3 years in prison for making payments violation campaign finance laws ahead of the 2016 elections. U.S. Senator Chuck Schumer urged President Donald Trump to prosecute Huawei Technologies for intentionally violating U.S. sanctions against Iran. He also went on to say that Huawei raised serious concerns among U.S. officials for a potential role in cyber espionage. The minority leader asked that the company CEO Meng Wanzhou stands trial to face bank fraud charges. She was arrested on December 1st in Canada at the request of the U.S. U.S. wants to extradite her for the charges. U.S. National Security Advisor John Bolton said that the U.S. President Donald Trump won't be meeting Russian President. Now, the meeting won't take place until Russia releases the Ukrainian ships and sailors that were seized near Crimea. Russia seized 3 Ukrainian Navy vessels and their combined crew of 24 last month. Russia had accused them of illegally entering Russian waters. Britain's Prime Minister Theresa May appealed to fellow EU leaders for concessions, this in order to help her get backing in the Parliament next month for a deal that can smoothen the Brexit. She arrived at the EU summit a day after she won the vote of confidence of her Conservative lawmakers. While the EU leaders were ready to help her, they warned her that they would not reopen the negotiations. They all said that they needed to know exactly what May wanted to secure in Brussels. U.S. Senate Foreign Relations Committee Chairman introduced legislation in the murder case of Saudi journalist Jamal Khashoggi. The legislation holds the Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman responsible for the murder. He also will be insisting on accountability for those responsible for his death. Despite President Donald Trump's desire to maintain close relations with Saudi Arabia, the joint resolution is backed by at least 9 of his fellow Republicans in the Senate. Russian woman Maria Butina admitted to a U.S. court that she acted as an illegal foreign agent. Butina pleaded guilty to conspiring to work with a Russian official and 2 U.S. citizens as an agent from 2015 to infiltrate the National Rifle Association. The association that was aligned Republican politicians, including President Donald Trump. She was arrested in July and had earlier pleaded not guilty. She faces 6 months in prison, followed by likely expulsion. After the recent attacks in the West Bank, Israel Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu vowed to make those who attack the country pay with their life. Netanyahu added that Israel will recognize thousands of shelter homes built without government sanctions in the bank. He will also be trying to advance plans for 82 new housing units in Ofra and 2 others in the West Bank. The move is likely to anger Palestinians who want the West Bank as a part of a future state. Meanwhile, Israeli protesters have called for the resignation of Netanyahu over West Bank violence. Yemen's warring parties agreed to a ceasefire the Houthi-held port city of Hodeidah. Both parties will be withdrawing their troops from the port. This came as a first significant breakthrough for UN-led peace talks, which aimed at ending a 5-year conflict. As the peace talks ended, UN Chief Antonio Guterres said that a framework for negotiations would be discussed in the next round of talks in January. He also said that the UN would play a leading role in the port. The The Climate Action Network voted to give COP24 host Poland the Colossal Fossil of the Year award. This is given to the country deemed to have done its best to block progress in the negotiations or in the implementation of the Paris Agreement. Poland generates most of its electricity from coal. Before the talks started on December 2nd, the energy minister announced that it planned to build a new coal mine. Maldives representatives told the delegates at the UN climate talks that Maldives is not prepared to die. Head of Maldives delegation Mohammed Nasheed said that the Maldives will do all in its power to keep its head above water. He appealed to nations to overcome their divisions over how global warming can be tackled. He also went on to say nothing has changed at the climate negotiations in the past 10 years. The low-lying Maldives is among countries most vulnerable to the effects of climate change. Volunteers from Greenpeace protested in Brussels when an EU leaders meeting kicked off. They called upon the European Union to act urgently on reducing carbon emissions. They blocked the official arrival routes. About 50 demonstrators forced convoys carrying heads of states to change course to witness their demonstrations. The demonstrations included a 1-ton ice sculpture of planet Earth that was melting. Around 30 demonstrators were detained and eventually released. Police fired tear gas at protesters in Amman, and this after they clashed with protesters during a demonstration against the government's tough austerity measures. These austerity measures have been backed by the International Monetary Fund. Several people, as well as at least 4 police officials, were injured in the clash. Protesters have been protesting over the past 2 weeks. A judicial source said authorities have detained several people for chanting slogans critical of King Abdullah and the government. More than 200 people came forward with complaints of sexual abuse by a Brazilian faith healer. The accusations against him began last week. Now, several alleged victims spoke on a global news TV program of sexual violence in the past years. One young man said the healer sexually assaulted his mother, who was looking for a cure for her terminal cancer. However, the healer said that he was innocent. Many of his victims said he molested them for years as children under the pretense of spiritual healing. U.S. First Lady Melania Trump visited the Washington's Children's Hospital. She kept up with the First Lady's tradition of Christmas season. Melania toured part of the neonatal intensive care unit as Children's National Health System. She met with the families and children treated there. The First Lady also read author Todd Zimmerman's Oliver the Ornament to some patients. Apple unveiled its plans for a $1 billion campus in Texas. The Texas will create jobs for the tech giant outside Silicon Valley. The new campus will be not for manufacturing, it will be for engineering and other functions. The campus will be near Apple's existing facility in Austin. It was initially accommodated 5,000 new employees. The chief executive of the company, Tim Cook, said that Apple is proud to bring new investment, jobs and opportunities to cities across the U.S. A Virgin Galactic rocket plane reached space on and returned safely to the California desert. It became the first U.S. commercial human flight to breach Earth's atmosphere since America's 2011 shuttle program. After Richard Branson's Virgin Galactica breached the atmosphere, he hugged his son and other spectators. The plane landed a few minutes later to cheers and applause. It had concluded roughly an hour's journey.